other. Shalom. Man, we should do something exciting, but I don't know what it is. So why don't you do something exciting like, say hi to your neighbor. All right. And that's not enough. So look at your neighbor and say, today's going to be a great, powerful message that you really need to hear. All right. Shalom. That was fun. All right. Well, now that I'm off my train of thought, the music was like, let's get pumped up. Yeah, let's go. Ladies Retreat 2019. Oh, yeah. So I think today might be like a fitting example of a few things that surround our lives. Number one is that sometimes it doesn't go as planned, right? So Yvonne was telling me just a minute ago when she came up and said hi, she said, you know, Yahweh didn't want you to play the guitar today because you lost your pick even before the whole thing started. So then you didn't really listen. You just went ahead and did it. Then you broke a string and didn't play the last song in a while. So, I'd say Yahweh does a pretty good job even when we're trying to not, listen to what's going on. The Spirit's out there. So the Ladies Retreat 2019. I got an email. Came into my inbox and it said, Top 10 things that men know about women. And my name was there, Dwayne. So I opened up the email like a good guy would do, and I'm like, I already know this anyway. So I opened it up and I looked, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all listed in a nice list, and there's nothing written on the other side of that. Because the truth is, men don't know a lot about ladies. Now, you might think, well, it's true. Like I told my wife on several occasions, what worked last week doesn't work next week, right? I mean, if it worked good, are y'all with all the guys in here? We get a little shout out for the guys here that are two. Seriously? Hey, come on. Got one young lady on the front row that was doing it for all the guys. Oh, but it was Riley too. All right. I was supposed to give a couple announcements, but I can't remember those, so let's just keep going with the message today. All right. How many of you know Irma Bomback? Anybody know her? Yeah, you heard that stuff? So she tells a story one time, and I think it's a great story. Lead into the message today. Of course, we're going to talk about ladies and all kinds of issues. Well, we're talking about ladies anyway. Irma Bomback, she writes, she's pretty clever. She said for the first 4 or 5 years after she had children, she considered motherhood a temporary condition. Right? Not a calling, necessarily. It was a time in my life that I set aside for exhaustion and long hours, knowing that it would pass. Then one afternoon, with 3 kids in tow, I came out of a supermarket pushing a cart with 4 wheels that went in opposite directions. When my toddler son got away from me, just outside the door, he ran toward a machine holding bubble gum in a glass dome. You seen those things out there? Yeah? Oh, yeah, John says. He's with me. I like it. It's here for, yeah. Anyway, so he's running up to this glass dome with all this bubble gum in it. In a voice that shattered glass, he shouted, "Gimme, gimme!" I told him I would give him what for if he didn't stop shouting and get in the car. As I physically tried to pry his body from around the bubble gum machine, he pulled the entire thing over. Glass and balls of bubble gum went all over the parking lot. We had now attracted a sizable crowd. I told him he would never see a cartoon as long as he lived, and if he didn't control his temper, he was going to be making license plates for the state. He tried to stifle his sobs as he looked around at the staring crowd. Then he did something that I was to remember for the rest of my life. In his helpless quest for comfort, he turned to the only one he trusted his emotions with. That was me, she writes. He threw his arms around my knees and held on for dear life. I had humiliated him, chastised him, and berated him, but I was still all he had. She says, that single incident defined my role. I was a major force in my child's life. Sometimes we forget how important stability to a child is. I've always told mine the easiest part of being a mother is giving birth. The hardest part is showing up for it each day after that. Right? That's true. Sometimes the daily grind of things really get to us, doesn't it? Right? Sometimes your guitar string breaks and you're like, okay, what am I going to do now? So we have to shut the whole thing down. I'm sure, have you ever tried to stop worship before? It's a challenging thing. What is it? Oh, we have children's class today. Is that what you came here to say, Adam? Why don't you stand up and tell everybody to dismiss it for children's class?
Hey guys, children's are dismissed for children's class.
Woo! All right, let's hear it for Adam. Represent, son. All right, we'll give them a moment to settle down. All right. Anyway, we were talking about the everyday mundane in life, right? Well, I just want to tell you that male or female, it doesn't make any difference. Life is simple but complicated all at the same time. Life is easy, but it's very hard all at the same time. Some days go by. When I was working as a remodeler, I can remember going to work on certain days, and I thought I worked really, really hard, like I did a lot of things. But when I got to the end of the day and I looked back and I said, what do I see that I accomplished? Sometimes it's not much, right? You were busy, you did a lot of things, you talked to a lot of people, you picked up a lot of trash, you did whatever you had to do. But some days you get to the end of it, it's like, I don't even know what I've done today. What's an impact? There's a book, and you can like the book, don't like the book, doesn't really matter to me. But this pastor wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life, right? You guys are familiar with that? Now, what's interesting about that book is that he sold 50 million copies of that book. And that was a few years ago. I'm sure the list is up. And so when I see stuff like that, I think to myself, a lot of times life is so mundane, especially I think for ladies, for a few reasons. We'll get into those for just a minute. But I think that if we don't watch out, we'll get caught up into this thing to where the most important thing is the mess somebody's made instead of the heart that we're touching. Does that make sense? Sometimes we get caught up in the mistakes that we've made in the past, and we get to thinking about what our future looks like in light of the mistakes that we made in our past. Sometimes our future right now can be tainted by all the stuff that went on yesterday, yesteryear, yesterseason. And if we don't watch out, then we'll fill our life with yesterday, forgetting that today is right before us. And today we have plenty of choices. Now, when I mix that with this purpose-driven life, I've read part of the book. I can't say that I read every word of it, but this is what I think is really interesting about that, is I think most people are seeking to know what their purpose is in this life. What contribution that they're going to leave that's going to be lasting. As a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a husband, what are we going to leave that will last? Yeshua talked about that. He said, don't look for the things that rust and fall apart and fade, but look to store up what? Treasures in heaven that moth and rust can't destroy. Right? I remember my friend Scott Bitterman said one time that he got moths in his closet, like the food moths. Anybody ever had that trouble? Food moths? He couldn't get rid of them. So he said one day as he was outside walking, he saw a moth and smashed it right away. Somebody said, why did you do that? He said, because I don't like moths. Right? Because they get into your life and they mess things around and they mess things up, and then you spend all this time and effort trying to get rid of them. And if you've ever had moths in your closet and your food, it's very difficult. You got to bomb the whole house to get rid of the things. So I've heard. But sometimes the things in life that come, we don't ask for, we don't invite. Sometimes we invite them in, right? How many of you ever invited trouble into your house? With your words or your attitude or, you know what I'm saying, right? But sometimes things come into our life that we didn't ask for. These are sometimes as we're going along doing our thing, things happen that we didn't expect and we didn't want to happen in our lives. So how do we make all of this work out really good? So here's what I want to say to you. Today's ladies, I think, young girls, older, younger, I think it doesn't really matter. Our culture is demanding so much. They say, you don't look good, you look good. You're too skinny, you're too fat. You're not smart enough, you're too smart, right? There's a person who was in the acting business, and they aptly wrote this down. They said, here's what they say to you. They really did say something, and it was really important. I have no idea where it went. It was quite a buildup, and now I'm losing all of the air. 100% is gone. Well, let's talk about this while I can't find this. How many of you ever been on a diet? Anybody here? How many of you had a New Year's resolution, even though we know the New Year hasn't happened yet, but in January 1st is a starting point for a lot of people. How many of you resolved to lose a few pounds this year? Anybody? Nobody wants to admit that, of course not. How many of you want to gain a few? Anybody? That's maybe an easier question. Austin wants to gain a few? Yeah, get it done, brother. Got to get it. So let's just talk about the yo-yo of a diet, right? We go on a diet so we can lose weight. We lose some weight. We go off the diet. We go back right to the same pattern that we were before. We gain the weight back. And then we continue on this cycle thinking that dieting is going to help us, right? And I think so many times the world's aim at women today is that you're too something that you're not, right? Something about you isn't right. Even in our culture today, I think that we're even losing the balance. For sure, we're losing the balance of what is a woman? What does it mean to be defined as a woman? I mean, is it a feminist, we don't need any men in our lives that we're listening to? What philosophy or what scope are we listening to? Where do we get our adequacy for who we are, our gender? To me, when I look at the way that Yahweh has designed men and women, I see such beauty in His plan, right? There was a lady I was talking to this week. She said, when Adam was made, why Yahweh didn't stop then. Right? I said, well, tell me, oh wise one, why didn't Yahweh stop with the man? Because He wasn't done. He knew that wasn't perfect, so He had to do something different. I said, oh, okay, that's true. She ate the fruit, just saying. I mean, I could say a couple more. I like those jokes, the men and women jokes about when the garden was created. So Adam was walking around the garden one day talking to Yahweh, right? And this is, of course, a story from Dwayne. Don't put this in the Bible. But, Adam was saying, man, feels kind of lonely. And I was like, well, okay, I'll make a creature for you that will take care of everything in your life. She'll be your stand-along through your whole life. She'll fulfill every need that you have that's outside of your condition to do it. She'll cook for you. She'll clean for you. She'll do everything that you need, right? He said, there's only one thing. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So then Adam looked up and said, what can I get for a rib? Love you. Just kidding. The honest truth is I think that Yahweh really created something amazing when He made men and women. And I think that to say that, like to me, all this talk about who's superior, who's the head, and we talk about all these things and submit and all, and I love those topics are really relevant for authority and the way that Yahweh has laid things out. But sometimes we get so caught up in the jargon of what it is, we miss the beauty of what Yahweh created. Right? If you want to have a healthy family, I was watching a little thing on Facebook the other day, and it talked about, everybody's talking about how you get privileges in life, and the privilege make a difference in where you go. And I believe that that's true. But one of the first things the guy said when he was defining privilege was, how many of you grew up in a home with a mother and father together? All of you take a step forward, right? As in saying, that is a real asset as you walk through life, because it brings more stability. And I know that there are a lot of single mothers out there, and there's no disrespect and what I want to say. No, it's no disrespect in what I'm saying about having a two-parent family, but Yahweh's design was for a man and a woman to raise a family together. Yahweh's design was for those two roles to be so involved in the family that if you had a daughter or if you had a son, they would know where they fit in. And the trouble is with Yahweh's plan is when you get the balance and the plan out of focus and out of whack, then we forget who we are. And so the truth is that Yahweh did something amazing. You know, in Ecclesiastes, I think it's chapter 7, verse 10, it says, who can curve or who can bend what Yahweh has made straight? Right? The work of Yahweh's hands is amazing. And I say to you that the best work, the greatest work that Yahweh created was what? Well, of all the works that Yahweh did, of all the earth, of all the created stuff that we see around us, what's the best creation that Yahweh made? People. Yahshua being the chief, the first fruits of all, right? Of all creation. And then secondly, if we were to put a hierarchy up there, say, so Yahshua's up here, that's the best of his creation. What's next? Men and women, right? Humanity, the human race. That's the best of Yahweh's works. And sometimes we get so bombarded with these arguments about who we are, we forget that there's a whole life that's supposed to be with joy. Sometimes we hear the voices outside that are telling us who we are, and we forget that Yahweh already put a stamp of approval on a woman and a man and who they are and who they're supposed to be. Sometimes we get to hearing what people are saying, and we begin to believe the lies that others throw at us, and it puts us off guard, right? As if one thing is to say that if you have some deep scars, or you have some deep wounds, or you have some big messes in your life, that maybe you're not worth it. Well, I want to tell you, that's not how Yahweh sees us. Right? That's not how Yahweh sees us. Yahweh sees our whole life laid out before us. He sees every part. Every hiding place, every open place, every broken place, right? Every place that we've been, He sees. And the best that we can do, honestly, is to just go before Him genuinely with wherever you are, at whatever point you find yourself. Because if you don't stay before Him, you'll get out of whack on the way you see the world. You know, there was a day, if you turn over to John chapter 4, and I'm going to change up, I think, a little bit here. John chapter 4. There's a story about Yahshua going to Samaria. Now, I want to give you just a little bit of background about this story so that it puts it in context. And as we read the words, you'll see that there are some indications that what I'm telling you is the truth. It's not just my own opinion. Now, there may be a little conjecture in my story, but I still think that the story, like the stories that we read in the Bible, especially when Yahshua is interacting with people, are really important. Details really matter. And sometimes we read a passage so fast to get to the next chapter or to get to the next thought that we miss a lot of the context of the whole situation. For instance, there was a day when there were a lot of kids coming around where Yahshua was. And the disciples said he's got more important work to do, so we don't want these little kids pestering him. But then Yahshua said what? He said, slow down. Bring those little children to me. Right? I want to bless them. And so sometimes what we see as a distraction, Yahshua sees as a moment of impact. All right? So number one on your list today as a lady, as a man, right, is that we have moments of impact in our life. They sometimes arise because they just are brought forth from Yahweh. Sometimes they arise because we've gotten into a mess of some sort, and we have a choice or decision to make. Sometimes a moment happens because someone close to us is not doing so well, or someone close to us is doing really good. Sometimes these moments happen, but there's moments of impact in our life that if we're not careful, those moments will pass us by, and the impact that we could have had will be sort of like the lady that we were talking about, Irma, where she was seeing all the damage, and she was trying to calculate how she's going to get out of this, referencing a whole crowd looking at her and her son, and missing the moment of impact, which was, this little guy needs her more than her words of berating him. This person needs me more than whatever I'm feeling from someone else. The only place that I can tell you that this makes sense is inside the context of having a relationship with your Creator. Like when I say having a relationship with your Creator, I don't mean somebody else's relationship with your Creator that makes you feel good about your Creator. I'm talking about the place where you have time to spend trying to make sense of sometimes the moments that define us in life. And it can't be secondhand. Like secondhand witnesses sometimes are really good, but if you tell somebody what it feels like and then you put them in the place of what it feels like, it's a lot different, right? Sometimes you got to get right into the fire. So it's sort of like the guy that was running across the Niagara Falls with a wheelbarrow, right? And he walked on a tightrope, he got to the other side, turned around, and he came back over there and he said, "Hey, do you believe I can do that again?" He said, "Well, sure, we saw you do it once." He's like, "Do you trust that I can do it again? Do you trust me?" Said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, then get in the wheelbarrow." Right? Do we trust? Do you really trust? Like, do you really trust? Do you really have a relationship that'll help you through thick and thin? Well, I want to show you a picture of who I think Yahshua is at his best for us. Okay? John chapter 4, he comes into Samaria. Now, when he gets to Samaria, I want you to know that the Jews in Jerusalem, I've said this many times, the Jews in Jerusalem hated the Samaritans. They called them pagans. Basically, they were lost children that were out of Yahweh's favor, and they had no plan of reconciliation or redemption. That's the way that the Jews in Jerusalem felt about the Samaritans. It was like a sibling rivalry that went back many, many years. But on this scene, on this day, the Jews that were around that area, and I'm positive that Steve could attest to this, if they were to go on a trip, we've read the history, they go up to Samaria and go around, not through Samaria, because they did not want to be polluted by the Samaritans. Are you with me? Is that true? Yeah. It's true. They hated them. I want to put that in context to you so that you know when Yahshua marched into Samaria, he wasn't going to a friendly territory. His disciples were second guessing him, I'm sure. They were saying, "We're going to Samaria? Seriously?" Right? And so he shows up in Samaria. Let's pick it up in verse 4. It says, "He left Judea and went away again into Galilee, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to the city of Samaria called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph." Like sacred ground. I mean, we're talking about a lot of biblical history. Like if you've ever been to Israel and you went through biblical history and you're standing on the mountain where Eliah called down fire, it's an amazing place to be, right? I mean, you feel all of the impact of what happened there that was so important in our faith. So he's staying there and he's talking about the well of Jacob. So Yahshua, being wearied from his journey, was sitting thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. Now, in Kenya, they keep track of the time like this. So the 6th hour of the day is noon, I think. Am I right? I just came from Kenya. 3rd hour of the day is 9. 6th hour of the day is noon. Okay, that makes sense to my story. So he gets to this well. Again, I want to tell you, so when you're gathering water from a well and you're walking a long way in a dry place that's very hot, most people come and do that early in the morning or in the evening. Most people do that at that time. So in this story, when Yahshua gets there, he's there at noon and he meets a lady there. All right, so we were talking earlier about ladies gathering together. What do? When ladies all get together, what do? They talk. Now, I can't talk too much about any lady talking because I talk way more than Elise. Matter of fact, I was telling somebody last night that I've probably talked out. I could probably take a year off of talking. You know, I've used all the words. I could take a year off, it would be okay, but I can't do that because it wouldn't work. I would try, but it just wouldn't work. Anyways, so ladies get there, they talk. So early in the morning, probably at the well, and when you see a water hole, which I've been to in Kenya, which we're not so familiar with because we all have water in our homes, but when you see people who have to go gather water, they go at certain times because it's not so hot. They bring it back. So really what happens around a well is in the morning, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of ladies that would be there because it's the ladies who primarily go get the waters for their families in that culture and in this culture that we're reading right here in Samaria. And so this lady was not there in the morning. She was there at noon. And she was by herself. right? So I want to make a little stretch, and it may not be this way, but I'm going to go ahead and make the stretch because I think her life bears this out. If she didn't show up when all the other people showed up, and it could have been the reason that we're about to read about what Yahshua opens up and looks at very candidly in her life. And I would say that if he looked inside of my life, or if he looked inside of your life, what he would find is these areas of pain that we've created something that we didn't want necessarily, that we didn't like, or something's been heaped upon us that we didn't ask for, and yet we have to deal with it. But in order sometimes for us to deal with it, we bury it. We build a wall or a fence around that, right? And then we live our life with the wall built up around an area of pain to protect us. And the trouble is that sometimes the love that we could receive to be restored and to move through that gets hit by the wall that we have. And we don't let people in so much. And I'm not for gossiping, and I'm not for going and spreading people's business, and I'm not for getting people to open up and share things that they don't want to share. But I am saying is that the point of impact, sometimes the moment of impact, the place that we have where we could release it, we refuse the invitation to release it, and we further dig it more into our life. And its root grows a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper until it gets to where our heart is very hard. And it becomes an area where we can't move and operate really well. Does that make sense? So this lady, I'm just going to say to you, her life would reveal that she was there by herself because she really didn't get along with the other ladies. And her life was where she was outcast. You know, in the culture, you were shunned. When someone was shunned, they put you outside of their fellowship. And you were shunned. You didn't come and talk. They walked right by you as if you weren't there, right? This is the place, this is the moment where Yahshua meets this lady. Now, I think most people, as Yahshua so clearly talked about with the Pharisees, wouldn't have talked to her. Most people would have walked by. Most people would have said, you know what, I don't really have to talk to this person, so I'm not going to. But here's what I want to say. Verse 7, there came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahshua said to her, give me a drink. Verse 8, for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. So it was just he and her at this well. Therefore the Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, since I am a Samaritan woman? And in parentheses, mine says, for Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Yahshua answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of Yahweh, and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Do you think she's puzzled at this reply? Do you think she's like, I wonder who this is? Well, who is this guy that's talking to me like this? It's kind of crazy. I think she did. She said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water? So she makes an observation that's really practical. You don't have a bucket to get water. No electricity there, brother. Verse 12, you are not greater than our father Jacob, are you? Who gave us the well and drank of it himself and his sons and his cattle. Again, we're going back into our heritage. We're going back into our history. The importance of this well. This was Jacob's well. This wasn't just any well. This well was put there by one of the patriarchs. And we've been drawing water from this well for a long time. And this water has sustained our lives for a long time. And then the next thing that goes on is Yahshua looks at him and says, everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I give him shall never thirst. But the water that I will give him will become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life. Now, I want to tell you that if you were standing with Yahshua and you kind of knew who he was, you kind of said, okay, I think I'm talking to the Savior. I mean, like they didn't always know, that they were talking to the Savior. Even the disciples up until the time that he died, they were like questioning him, like, what does it mean when you say you're going to go away in 3 days? And where are you going? And do you know where I'm going? And they don't know where I'm going. They just want to know who's the greatest, who's going to sit beside him. Right? So at some point you perceive that you're talking to someone and the conversations is just a bit odd. And he says, but But the water that I will give him will become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life. Now, if Yahshua said that to you, what do you think that would mean about the rest of your life? If you come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, and you drink from this well, and the water that I give you for your thirst is the satisfying of your souls for a lifetime, to not only yourself find healing, but also to be a wellspring of his mercy for others, what does that prophesy about the rest of your life? That's pretty crazy. It's a pretty amazing thought. To me, sometimes it's like, do I really carry that kind of transformation in my life that people can see clearly that Yahshua has put inside of me a wellspring of life that others can come and drink and find security and safety and be led to the Father because of my actions, my words, my life? And the most concerning part of all of our lives, I'm positive, if I polled you, most of you would put the most value and the most importance in your immediate family and their well-being. Is that true? You want your family to be well. You want your children to walk right. You want your parents to find Yahshua. For some people, that's a lifelong prayer, that their parents would find Yahshua. For some parents, it's a lifelong prayer that their children would find Yahshua. Right? But when you find them, what happens next in your life? Let's read on. As Yahshua found most of us, we were thirsty. The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water so I will not be thirsty nor come all the way here to draw. So she wants a well at her house, so she doesn't have to walk so far for water. It's a long way sometimes. People have to walk in Kenya up to 5 or 10 kilometers for water, even today in some of the remote areas, because there's no springs, there's no wells in their area. There's a guy named Daniel Meisel that some of you know. He and his wife are over in Kenya right now, and they're digging wells for people who are in need of water, because it isn't so readily available. It isn't like we have it where we go turn on 5 taps in our house and we have water everywhere. In those lands, it's dry, it's sparse. So she's looking forward. She's saying, if you can give me water, I want water. I want like flowing water at my house. I don't have to come here every day and draw this well. You know, isn't that the day of every day of life? We got to go somewhere and do something, and it's mundane. And if we don't watch out, every day it'll get old, and we'll look at it and we'll say, I don't know if it's even worth it to go get water anymore. I would really like to have the spout at my house. And how blessed are you ladies, because you don't have to go carry water. Anybody carrying water from 5 kilometers or 2 kilometers or 1 kilometer or an outhouse? How many of you have done that in the past? How many of you have had to carry water a long way? See, we live in a blessed society. We live in a blessed generation, don't we? Sometimes we don't even think about the hassle that people are going through right now to wash clothes or easy things like that. But what do we, as a tendency, what do people tend to do? We tend to look at our situation and compare it against something perfect and say, mine's not perfect, right? And by comparison, we lose contentment. And again, the place that we find is the place where Yahshua has the well. He's got the water that we need. So here's what he says. And I think that this is, like, when I look at the way that Yahshua talked to people, I think that it's an amazing lesson for us to learn. And I hope that as we go on, we get better at seeing what he sees in people. So he looks at her and he says, okay, verse 16, go call your husband and come here. And the woman answered and said, I have no husband. Yahshua said to her, you have correctly said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. This you have said truly. So now he looks a little deeper in. And he says something about, sort of like when he was talking, and he said, I saw you under the fig tree the other day, one of the disciples, right? And he pulled the disciple in, he said, I saw you sitting over there. It wasn't Philip, but it was Nathaniel? I think it was Nathaniel. He said, I saw you sitting under a fig tree the other day. And Nathaniel said, how did he see me sitting on a fig tree? He wasn't around me. The same way he's talking to her, he says, go call your husband. A really simple, easy thing to say. And then she looks up and she says, I don't have a husband. And then he says, you say correctly, but let me tell you a little history of your life. You've had 5. But the one you're with now is not your husband. That's true. Now, I don't know how he was like reckoning all that, but let me tell you what I think about this particular part of the story. Okay? This lady's life was messy. This lady's life was broken. I don't know about her children, because it doesn't really say about her children. It doesn't say how many children she had by which husband, which one she was living with. I do believe it's something that's very relevant for our society today. And I will give you a strong warning for anybody who's getting together, is when you move in with someone, and they're not your husband and they're not your wife, you don't really have a lot. Let me tell you a tendency that happens today. A tendency is for a guy and a girl to get together, and then they don't want to get married because that's too much commitment, but then they move in together. But let me tell you, one of the things that happens that I learned at a step family conference this year about moving in together is that when a man and a woman move in together, the woman is married, the man is usually not. In her heart, the woman is married, and she's committed. Statistically speaking, there are always exceptions to the rule. Some people say it doesn't work out so good, but I say that sometimes it does work out good. I know people who I respect now that carry the title of a leader that when they started, they got pregnant before they were married, but their marriage is thriving now because they followed good principles to fix the mess that they were in, and Yahweh has blessed them through that. You know, here's the thing. Sometimes we look down upon people's messes in life. And we judge them in places. But when Yahshua was talking to her, he wasn't judging her. He was connecting with her. It was a moment of impact for her. Because she looks up and the next thing she says is, I perceive that there's something about you that I don't quite understand. I think you're a prophet. And she must have been looking for a prophet to have that on her mind to say, I think you're a prophet. So tell me more about it. Now she's intrigued, right? So most of the time we go to talk to a person that we think is in this position, we may have judgment for them. We may tell them they're making terrible choices. But Yahshua's entreating her. He's speaking to her with respect. He's telling her about her situation. He's not taking anything away from the truth. But she's not running from him. She's now saying, this guy's talking about living water. He knows about my life in some intimate details about what's going on with me. And now, I wonder who he is. Sometimes I wonder if this is the way, if this is like the heart of which we operate out of for moments of impact. I wonder if we're looking at the life and the people around us the way that Yahweh does. And when it comes to women, one of the things that I think is amazing is that my mom can say something just right to me. And I love it. Right? Even as an almost 50-year-old guy, I know that my mom loves me. And that makes me feel good. Because I know that she's got my back. I know that she wants me to do well. I know that she's probably watching right now thinking, I wish he'd go on and talk about something else. But I want to tell you that the way a mom is, and the way that Yahweh designed a woman to be, you know, today, I hear, I guess it's mostly young girls, but it's been going on for all eternity. I mean, today I hear some of the young ladies and they're speaking so foul. It almost becomes so unattractive, even to a lady that I think is attractive. And you listen to some people, you know, most of you are on Facebook and you're listening to some of these ladies that are ranting about abortion, or they're ranting about the problem with men, or they're ranting about, you know, all these things. I mean, I just look and I think how unattractive it is. What if there was a wellspring of life coming from that heart? And the words that they chose were words like a mom could use for her children or a wife could use for a husband. And what if the wellspring of life was really because they had a deep connection to Yeshua and they loved him? What if we could just dissolve our messes into some mercy, right? What if we could bring all of our brokenness of 5 husbands, and we don't even have one now, right? What if we could just bring all that stuff somewhere and just drop it off and have peace? Well, the truth is, in verse 19, the woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship." And Yahshua said to her, "Woman, believe me. An hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know, but we worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people the Father seeks to be his worshipers. Yahweh is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that a Messiah is coming. When that one comes, he will declare all things to us." And Yahshua said to her, "I speak to you am he." You know, I just want to ask you today, like, have you brought all your troubles to the only one that can really bring healing in your life? Have you laid them out there and said, "I need something that's not inside of myself. I need a revival in my spirit that I know doesn't come from me. It has to come from you." There's a song that's been on my heart. It's called "Your Mercy." And I read Psalm 130. And in Psalm 130 it says, a few verses in, it says, "Yahweh, if you were to count sins against us, who could stand?" Who could stand? I'm telling you, we're sunk. But then the verse goes on to say, "But your mercy, your loving kindness that you put within your covenant is so good that it can even overcome our sins." That gives you a reason to be happy. That's a wellspring of life within inside. You know, when you read down and you see how Yahshua treats this lady, it's hard to miss that his compassion is greater than any condemnation that he says. His compassion shines through to put light on darkness, right? And I feel so often that we get so caught up in, I don't mean to disrespect. I know people, you may or may not like what I'm saying. It's okay, but I'm just saying sometimes we get so caught up in knowing every word and every little meaning that comes from the word. And we could do a whole dialogue on, the helpmate, that word and what it means to be together. And there's books written on one word and how that all fits together. And I think it's amazing to study and see those things revealed. But sometimes we get the intellect without the emotion and the practicality of life. Sometimes we get the information, but we don't get the everyday walking. And I feel like when we have Yahshua who walks into any situation and he brings this connection to people that are broken, when we walk into someone who's broken, what's our first tendency? What's our first reaction? Where are we going with it? And ladies, I would say in your families, this is a point where your impact can be amazing. Because Yahweh filled ladies with good gifts. It says the verse that y'all have for your theme for this conference is her worth is far above what? Rubies. It means there's something so valuable, so precious. Do you know that Yahweh actually put it within you to change men's minds and hearts? Isn't it amazing that he says in there, make sure that you're walking the right way and your attitude is going the right way, and make sure that you're rightly motivated for what you're doing, because in and for that by, some of you will save your husbands Because of the way that you what? Behave. Because of the way that you are. So, Yeshua, he wants the brokenhearted. He wants the people who are down. He wants the people who are living a mundane life. But he doesn't want us to stay that way. He wants us to rise up to a life where we have a wellspring of where when we open our mouth, it comes out blessings. When we walk forth to do whatever Yahweh's called, and like I said about the purpose, is that Yahweh has a greater purpose. And I feel like in women, Yahweh has an amazing purpose for them. Yahshua didn't condemn that lady. If anyone might have, it would have been Yahshua who saw her heart. We're all imperfect, so we all have even less of a right to condemn people for certain behaviors. Yahshua was able to separate the behavior from the person, and so we must. We need to see people separated from what their sin is and filled with what Yahweh's given them and what Yahshua is inspiring in them. You know, when Yahweh created Adam and Eve, and he set up the family the way that he did, there's no part of that he wanted to be ignored. And even though I know that sometimes we men ignore what you say, right? Sometimes your children say, I hate you. Sometimes your children give you praise. But more often when they're teenagers, it's a push-pull all around. And sometimes we get carried away by what other people are saying. But you know, the truth is that it's still written in, if you look around for it, all the places say that women and men, mothers and fathers, still have the most impact on their children. So just stay the course with the right attitude and the right way. And Yahweh will bless those areas where we can't control and where we can't take care of them. And it doesn't mean that everything works out good. I mean, Yahshua really is there for all times. When it's good, when it's bad, when it's moving forward, when it's falling apart. And the thing is that do we really trust that he has our best interests in mind? Let's turn over to John chapter 14. It says in verse 1 of John 14, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in Yahweh. Believe also in me. Verse 2, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way where I am going. Thomas said to him again, Sovereign, we do not know where you're going. How do we know the way? And Yahshua said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on you know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Master, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. Yahshua said to them, Have I been so long with you, and yet you have not come to know me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own initiative, but the Father abiding in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Otherwise believe because of the works themselves. Truly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will also do, and greater works than these he will do, because I go to the Father. Whatever you ask in my name, that will I do, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may be with you forever. That is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it does not know him, does not see him or know him. But you know him, because he abides in you. So let me tell you about the power of prayer. All right? I know that so many mothers have worn out their knees with prayer for their children. Right? I know that a lot of grandmas have prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. I know that the heart of a lot of people has spent time in what we would call intercessory prayer. And I want to let you know that one of the purposes that I think Yahweh has, especially for women, is to pray for their families. And to stay in that prayer and to not give up. Right? Of all the pursuits that I could say that ladies could do, being prayerful and being before Yahweh for the things that you need is one of those things that will pay off in time to come. The power of prayer, it says the power of a righteous man availeth much on this earth. And I was listening to a lady pray this morning as we anointed someone. And as she was praying, I could feel the heart, and I could feel like, it's not just a prayer. Sometimes I think when I'm praying, I'm just going through the motions of praying and saying words, right? But the prayers that go before Yahweh, that are honest, that are sincere, that aren't worried about the words that are chosen, but the heart in which is delivering it. That's the kind of prayer. Your families need you to be prayerful. And I can tell you, no matter what situation you face with husband, children, extended family, or anyone else, in the heart of prayer is where we find our greatest answers in life. And if you want to be a woman who makes an impact in the moments of life that count, then prayer should be your best friend. Prayer should cover your family. If you read through Proverbs 31, which I'm sure you'll do, and this is my last thought. If you read through Proverbs 31 as you go through the weekend and you see this lady who's taking care of business, right? The business that Yahweh's given her. I think I see in that chapter a lady that has so much purpose, that has so much influence, that has so much going on, right? She's not just sitting at home fretting about things that are going on. She's out buying land and selling it. She's up early in the morning putting linen and things together to clothe her family. She talks about her husband. Oh, yeah. With what? Utmost respect in the gates. And that's tough. Right? I think on some days when Elise and I have had a fight, then I think about her going and telling my friends how great a guy I am. Sometimes it seems contradictory, right? But Yahweh knows your situation and He knows who you are. Pray hard for the moments of life to make an impact in those around you. Yahweh bless you, and I hope you have a great weekend.
How is everyone today? All right. I don't know if this is on or not. Check, check. Oh, ooh. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to be singing an original song. I wrote it, I think, 3 weeks ago. It's basically a song that I wrote kind of out of like emotion and really just from the heart. Some things that I've been kind of going through these last couple weeks with school and being stressed out and just kind of I guess like restless with everything that I have to do. And so I feel like it's like a real honest song, but it's also very hopeful, and I really hope that, if you guys are fighting a battle, then you will see that like Yahweh is always with you, and he is never going to give up on you, and you can always turn to Him. So yeah, so I hope you enjoy it. Oop, hang on, I'm not much of a piano player, so okay. Sometimes it's harder to see the pain that's hidden in me. When the world is weighing on my soul, I feel like I've lost all control. Walking around the darkness, the night sky too went starless. These heavy thoughts become routine, overflow and rip the seams. I feel alone in this world sometimes. I don't feel worthy to be by your side. And I start to walk away from the light. Yeah, I start to walk away from your light. When the dark is all consuming, I'm afraid you start to lose me. Fade away with a heavy sigh. The enemy rises with his lies. I feel alone in this world sometimes. I don't feel worthy to be by your side. And I feel so lost and I'm going blind. Yeah, I feel so lost and I'm going blind. Then your whisper comes and finds me, and the noises fall back slightly. You slip your hand in mine and bring me back just in time. And I'll run, and I'll run, and get out of the madness. And I'll fight to let go of the sadness. And I'll run, to get out of the madness. And I'll fight to let go of the sadness. I'll give everything I have to win and feel protected from within. Even though my bones are cracked, I am never going back. No, I'm never going back. Thank you.
I don't think so. I think it's G. It's fine. We'll do it right here.
The solid ground is falling out from underneath my feet. Between the black skies and my red eyes, I can barely see. And when I'm feeling like I've been let down by my friends and my family, I can hear the rain reminding me. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. When my hopes and dreams are far from me and I'm running out of faith, I see the future I pictured slowly fade away. And when the tears of pain and heartache are pouring down my face, I find my peace in Yahshua. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. When they let me go and I just don't know how I'm gonna make ends meet. I did my best, now I'm scared to death that we might lose everything. And when a sickness takes my child away and there's nothing I can do, my only hope is to trust in you. In the eye of the storm,
In the eye of the storm,
you remain in control.
remain in control.
In the middle of the war,
In the middle of the war,
you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. In the eye of the storm,
in the eye of the storm,
you remain in control.
remain in control.
In the middle of the war,
In the middle of the war,
you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war,
in the middle of the war,
you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm.
It's called Scars, and I hope you like it. waking up to a new sunrise, looking back from the other side. I can see now with open eyes. Darkest water, deepest pain. I wouldn't trade it for anything, 'cause my brokenness brought me to you, and these wounds are the story you use. So I'm thankful for, so I'm thankful for the skies, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart, and I'll know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I'm thankful for the scars. Now I'm standing in confidence with the strength of your faithfulness. Now I'm not who I was before. No, I don't have to fear no more. So I'm thankful for the scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart, and I'll know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I'm thankful for the scars. I can see you're delivering me in your hands and your feet. I found my victory. I can see how you deliver me in your hands and your feet. I found my victory. So I'm thankful for your scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart. So I'll be forever thankful. I am thankful for the scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart, and I'll know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I'm thankful for the scars. So forever I'm thankful for the scars.
So this is very impromptu, but a little birdie told me that she's not going to be here tomorrow, so I wanted to make sure I got this while she was here. Since we're studying Proverbs 31 as women, I wanted to do a shout out to a beautiful lady in the back row. Gloria, would you please stand up? Well, I had the privilege of meeting her a few years ago, and she has just edified my life. Oh, so I'm starting to cry. She has just edified my life in such a wonderful way, and she has encouraged me to get in touch with my roots and to learn Spanish. Oh gosh, see, I'm crying. I'm still in Spanish 1, and the most valuable thing I've learned so far is lo siento para no habla español. So, so who is a Spanish speaker here? Can you raise your hand? Just Gloria, for real? No? Okay, thank you. So this song is a prayer to the Father, but it is in Spanish. So I'd like to dedicate this to Gloria, even though it is for the Father. So, and it's very simple. If you know Spanish, please sing along. And if you do not, you can learn it. It's fine. Tal como tú, yo quiero pensar, vivir y ser tal como tú. Mi deseo mayor es imitarte, Señor, tal como tú. Yo quiero ser tal como tú. That's it. Come on. Tal como tú. Tal como tú, yo quiero pensar, vivir y ser tal como tú. Mi deseo mayor es imitarte, Señor, tal como tú. Yo quiero ser tal como tú. Muchas gracias.
Thank
King of Heaven. Yeshua, let your kingdom come here. Let your will be done here in us. Yeshua, there is no one greater. You alone are Savior. Show the world your love. King of heaven, come down. King of heaven, come down. Let your
strong to save, and in your mighty name, King of heaven, come. King of heaven, come now. Let your glory reign, shining like the day. King of heaven, come. Well, Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all your blessings. Father, we want to see your glory reign. We want to see it shining like the day. We know that you're awesome in power, Father. Just fill our lives with the rest of this day, Father. Let our fellowship be good. We give you glory. We give you praise. We thank you for this day with the breath in our lungs. We pray that the fellowship would be good. The food would be good. We ask that you bless it in Yeshua's name, that the day would go well and the rest of the weekend for the ladies would be fulfilling. We just bless your name in Yeshua's name. Hallelujah. Dismissed. 2, 3, 4. Your glory reign, shining like the day. King of heaven, come. King of heaven, rise up. Who can stand against us? You are strong to save, in your mighty name. King of heaven, come. King of heaven, come down. King of heaven, come now. Let your glory reign, shining like the day. King of heaven,
Vegas, you got fire.